Good afternoon. Happy pre-Mother's Day. Do these look like Mother's Day flowers? Like, yeah. Can we get some color? So that would look like a new mother, like a mother having a baby color flowers, huh? But they're beautiful. I love orchids. Today is short. That's why I can just jab a little bit about the flowers. Because for the last, how you doing? So the last 3 weeks, last 3 sessions, we've been under this light under a basket, coming from the Gospel of Mark, 4th chapter, verses 21 through 25. We went through the fact that they don't necessarily go together, but it's one of those areas where we know it's something important because it's something that Jesus has repeated several times in several of the Gospels, in the Synoptic Gospels anyway. And so he's that if anyone has ears to hear, let him hear. And so this one today is even more important. The last section that we're doing under the light under a basket. It's basically talking about the general principles of life. I don't know if you recall, but last time we were talking about the balance of life. The balance of life from 24. Take heed what you hear. With the same measure you use, it will be measured to you, and to you who hear, more will be given. Today is very similar, but again, they're not connecting. They're just here together. We concluded, Dallas theology, that it was something that was said so often that the disciples, this is something that just stuck out in their head. And when Jesus was saying, for him who has ears to hear, that's really important. Are you listening to me? And so on that are some of his famous teachings, so to speak. And here's one of them. For Mark 4:25, for whoever has, to him more will be given, but whoever does not have, even what he has will be taken away from him. Now, on first take, that sounds a little not too cool, huh? Almost sounds mean in a sense that to who has, more will be given, and to him who has less or does not have. But whoever does not have, he that does not have, even what he has will be taken away from him. So how does that work? You don't have, but what you do have will be taken away from you. We're not going to go there. But basically, what this is saying is what I call, if you look at a lot of commentaries, a lot of commentary on this, and a lot of the commentators say that this is in essence the reality of life or the balance of life. Last week was the balance of life. This to me is basically the law of increase in life. It's like, you know what? It's very similar to what we talked about in the balance, but in the balance was just that. Balancing out the life, giving and taking, receiving and giving and thinking about giving and having that given back to you automatically because of the balance of life. But here, it's to whom much is given. So in your pretext here, I say, what type of tank are you operating on? Are you operating on a quarter tank, a half tank, or a full tank? And for those who have increase, then you have the ability to increase. And so I thought about that because someone said to me a few days ago that, their engine light was on. And so I thought about that. And I was like, if that's the case, my engine light has come on, has been checked out, and they're saying I need a new engine for the type of energy that I have put out this week. So I'm looking out the window because even with that, even with the fatigue that came along with trying to get these flowers in these flower beds, and I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that I just wasn't motivated this year. My favorite nursery, Rusin's, closed down at the end of last summer, and I knew I could always go there, get perfect seedlings, and they would just grow to be beautiful. So I went to a couple of nurseries, and I'm looking, and I'm like, is this thing going to grow? It really doesn't look that great, And so I did one bed, which is interesting also because typically when I'm working in my yard, I like to knock it out at one time. So I may spend literally 18 hours, sun up to sundown, and a couple of hours in the summertime or close to the spring, end of the spring, trying to get that done. So this time I'm doing it in patches. It's like I did one flower bed, then I did another flower bed, and I did the little corner flower beds, and I still have that back corner over there that needs to be done. And I'm just, I don't know if it's wisdom, but I'm just spreading it out. And I don't know if I had a choice because my body was just like, ugh. But when you look at it overall, I'm standing here and I'm looking and I'm like, wow, that's beautiful already. And that was because there was this increase in me. There was this extra to just keep going and keep going. And so when Jesus is speaking here, he's basically saying the same thing. For whoever has, to him more will be given. And then, and really though, think about that. Whoever has, to him more will be given. So let's just really put this in context. You're an employer. You have 10 employees. You have 10 employees that are working on a quarter tank. You have 5 employees that are working on a quarter tank. 3 employees working on a half tank. And 2 employees working on a full tank. Who are you going to assign to do a task that you need to have done now, based on those 3 tank levels? Absolutely the person in the full tank. Why? Because that person probably just has the ability to be able to handle a little more. Are you going to give it to the person in a quarter tank? No. Why are they at a quarter tank? Because that's about all they have the ability to do. As crazy as that may sound, let's put it more into context. So, look at the law of knowledge. There's nothing in life that stands still. Whether you have an engineering background or not, you know that everything is continuously moving. All these little atoms that are around us, there's just continual movement that's going on. And so, you can't be still in life. If you be still in life, the thing that you have, typically you will lose. You know? So, for the individual that has a basic understanding of instruments, eventually that person is going to get into a band, orchestra, or something, just because they've had that basic level of understanding instrument use. You know, let's take something we can relate to. So you have me hitting the tennis ball on the wall. So I get to a point where I'm handling a ball where it's no longer a challenge to hit the tennis ball on the wall, because you have great anticipation, you know where the ball is going, so you're there waiting for it, as opposed to when you first start hitting on the ball, you look like you're going to have a heart attack or a stroke, because it's going everywhere. So now you can handle it and you can control it, so there's like no sweat, no perspiration, where that used to be where you go get your sweat workout, is hitting on the wall. And so what happens? If you don't do that anymore, you're basically going to lose that ability. You come back and try it 6 months later, you're not going to have that anticipation of where that ball is going. You're not going to have that quick step because you've adapted to it, you've gotten used to it. But if you just say, I can handle that, you continue to do that, it's going to be a level of boredom. So what do? You go to the next level. You get your ball machine. And so now the ball machine can't hit back at you like a person, but you can program it to hit lobs and overheads and volleys and come at 50 miles per hour or 60 miles per hour. Do you know what I mean? So it's that ability that you had to be able to fundamentally hit that ball, anticipate where it's going, that gives you the desire and the ability to be able to handle a ball machine at various levels. So it's just like that with knowledge, but if you stop, there's nothing gained, and you end up losing what you have. Do you know? And that's why I tell people when they retire, they just kind of like go down the hill. The best thing that you can do after retirement, the best thing you can do after coming out of the military, is to continue trying integrate those practices on your own. You know, where every day you had to go to work and you had to read various documents. You have to figure out something that you have to read on your own after being retired. In the military, we have PT that we have to keep up with. You have to structure your own physical training program once you leave the military. And then it's like that, of course, we mentioned it last week with the worship thing. The balance. Are you coming to church and anticipating to have a great time, a great worship, to hear from God? Or are you just coming to get? So that's the balance piece. But the other side of that is the effort put forth in coming to worship. Are you going to be prayed up before you come to worship? Are you going to be listening to worship music before you get to the actual sanctuary? So the effort in which we give, if there's a lot of effort given towards preparing meals, you're going to get a lot from that. And then it's going to make you want to learn the next level. Right now, we're just doing great raw recipes. You'll go on and you'll do great raw, full entree meals. And then you have the most important thing, I think, is that responsibility. The thing I talked about a minute ago with the employees. So where there's an increase, to whom much as, people always say that work the same people to death in the church. That's because those people have exhibited a certain level of responsibility that says they can do things. So now the person that's appointing the responsibility has the assurance and confidence in that individual that they're going to stick with what they know for sure. Do you know? And so that response, you find yourself having, people tell me all the time, you're just doing too much. Well, to whom much is given, much is expected. The door is open. The more you have, the more knowledge you have, the more responsibility that you've taken on, the more doors, the more opportunities, the more things, the increase is there. And so that is all he's saying, is that strive to be the best that you can, and the better things are coming your way. And if you become stagnant, then life becomes stagnant. That's it. So as we talk about that, it's the summer months, and we've been going through some recipes, some things that you can do, and I haven't gotten a food processor yet. And by the way, I will be speaking at Allen A&E Baptist Church, Allen A&E Church, on Alabama Avenue in Southeast Washington, D.C. on Saturday at noon. I believe we will be there from noon to 1:30. It's free to the public. I'm extending an invitation to those of you who have been watching, you haven't quite gotten yourself there. I will be going through a healthy food demonstration. It's primarily a book signing. I'll have all 3 of my books there. But we're going to do a lecture. We're going to do a quick food demo, and then we'll sign some books. So feel free to come out and join us. And if you want me to come to your church and do a Saturday presentation, then feel free to have your pastor reach out to me via email or this administrative executive. So what we're going to do, as we keep in mind the increase, the law of life, the increase, is that we want to start eating better. We want to start being better. So what we want to do is we want to flush our system out. I had a good friend that called. Their blood pressure was really high this morning. I was like, you want to just figure out what's going on before you get too excited about it or panic or go sit in an ER for 6 hours. And one of the best things to do is just to allow your body to temporarily rest when something's going on. Especially if you're thinking high blood pressure, stroke, heart attack, something's blocked. Either air or water is not getting to the brain or the heart. And so what we do is we give the system an opportunity to clean itself out as best possible. And one of the best ways to do that is to stop eating temporarily, but to wild orange or some lemon essential oil drops, then that would be great as well. But if not, just keep flushing out with the water at least a good 12 hours of the waking day. Guarantee you things will change. If they don't, maybe you do need to go to the emergency room. And so on that note, we know that water is great for us, but then raw juices are extremely good for us. So it's summertime, you're starting to work in the yard, if you overwork yourself, you're going to create some inflammation in the body. So we always look for inflammation. If there's high blood pressure, there's inflammation. If there's Achilles pain, arthritis pain, whatever is going on, there's some inflammation, because inflammation is the beginning of disease and illness, sickness, acute or chronic. And so one of the best things that we do for elimination is the pineapple. Why the pineapple? Because it has a natural enzyme bromelain in it, which just is in and of itself a great thing. And so pineapple, what color is a pineapple? Right now it's greener than I want it to be, but when we think about a pineapple, we're talking color yellow. And when we talk about yellow foods, we're talking, yes, natural laxatives. I knew you were going to get that. And so the way that and then we want to use ripe fruit. We can get away with fruit that's not as ripe sometimes when we're juicing it, because this is going to be diluted. Why are we going to dilute our juice? Is because when you have natural juice, it's a lot of enzymes going on, and even though we fast to give our digestive system an opportunity to rest, when you're giving it a lot of nutrients, that's kind of heavy on the digestive system as well. And so what we do is we dilute juices. So typically if you go to the store and it's just fresh pressed juice, what you want to do is mix half of that juice, half distilled water. The way that we eliminate that is, first of all, instead of juicing, extracting the juice from the pulp, we blend our juices, most of our juices. The only thing that I usually don't blend are the carrots and celery. I use the wheatgrass machine for the celery. I use a regular juicer for the carrots. But with BlendTech, which is why you want to kind of invest in a valuable blender when you can, when you get around to it, is for that reason. And so that means that the entire contents of this pineapple are going to be consumed by me because it's going into the blender, versus when you juice, you're extracting the juice from the pulp. And you have all that pulp that's being discarded. When you're blending, you're going to have the pulp and the juice all in one. And that's the biggest difference. And that's the fiber that you're going to be getting. Bearing in mind that everybody wants you to have a high fiber diet. High fiber is good, but when we think about cleaning the intestines, when we think about good digestion and assimilation so that there will be proper elimination, we want to think, yes, you got to have a BLM, but when we say BLM, we're looking at bulk, lubrication, and moisture. So you have to have all of those things, you know, and so it's important that you get the fiber, but you get it in the right state in which the intestines can use it, get it in, assimilate it, and digest it properly. So on that note, we're going to do this for you really quickly because pineapple is one of the best things for inflammation. It's the best thing that you get to get the natural enzyme bromelain. And then also, this time of the year when you're working, it's supposed to be in the 80s for the next 2 days or so, you want to make sure you're getting an adequate amount of vitamin C. So when we look at oranges, we know we have vitamin C. Oranges are what color? That's a hard one, huh? Oranges are orange in color, so they're great for the skin. Remember, orange foods are great for the skin. And then we have my favorite here. So I wanted to leave some on the vine for you just to see. So we have what we call red globe grapes. Now there is a difference between red globe grapes and red table grapes. One is seedless and the other is seeded. Red globe grapes are seeded. I wouldn't even buy a seedless grape, honestly. It's just an exercise in buying food. So with the red globe grapes, obviously the biggest thing being is that you have that seed in the middle. Now you'll notice that the seed is embedded in this little mushy material. That material is what we call pectin, P-E-C-T-I-N, which is readily available in apples, which is usually the first ingredient in major colon cleansers. Why? Because pectin is extremely effective for cleaning out the colon, which is why you want to have grapes with seeds in them. And also, along with the grape, is that we have the skin on the grape, and right beneath the skin is a huge, and when I say huge, say it with me, huge amount of magnesium. And when you go to the ER room, they're going to make sure that when you're unconscious and they're trying to get you back stable, or when you're conscious and unstable and they're trying to stabilize you, they're going to give you an IV. Basically, the IV bag contents are typically going to be calcium, magnesium, sodium, and potassium, and or all. And so magnesium, as you would consider, would be very, very important for just helping to balance out the cellular level of the body. And you'll find a ton of that in red grapes. In fact, when we were doing my ministry in South Africa, with so many of the people having HIV, trying to get them to a level of comfort, one of the main fasts that I would put them on, or eating programs, would be the red grape fast. The red grape fast, which you can do here, which I recommend that you do maybe once a month, is that you take as many grapes as you can buy. I usually can get red seeded grapes from the commissary. There are just a lot of stores that have just stopped carrying them. It's just terrible that you can get every organic seedless grape. To eat an organic seedless grape is just like eating an organic table, you know? I mean, it just really doesn't make that much sense. And so when you get these, you want to consume about 1 pound every 2 hours of the waking day. So that would be 6 pounds basically a day. And that 6 pounds is not a whole lot. If you weigh this out, that's probably very close to 3/4 of a pound. So it's not a whole lot, and you chew them, and as you're just fasting and you're thinking about eating other things, to eat that grape is going to feel like you're eating a huge piece of bread or something. So those are the grapes. So we're going to use those for all of those medicinal properties I just talked about. The oranges, just to give it some flavor and some taste. And I just wanted you to see what we're working with. I mean, because it's really not that complicated. So you start out, you have some oranges. Basically, I just quartered them, and peeled them. You take the grapes, and you just hold them and pull them from the vine. If you have the little stem on a couple of them, you can pull that off or not. And then you rinse them and they're ready to go. I also have here a small piece of ginger. Ginger has a ton of medicinal properties for the gastrointestinal system. It's always good to just throw a small piece of ginger into your juices, and I love to do it with pineapple. Sometimes I'll do the pineapple ginger honey drink, but just a small piece of ginger just gives it a little bit of a kick. So I just wanted you to see that because we're talking simplicity, just how quick it is to get things done on a holistic level. So what we're going to do is put this over to the side because I've already washed and de-stemmed some grapes and sliced up the orange so I wouldn't take all of your time this afternoon. But I wanted to show you how simple it is to get into a pineapple. Now before, I talked about the fact that when you buy a pineapple, you actually want to smell the pineapple when you're ready to eat it, consume it, because that means it's at its ripe stage. When it's warm like this, because you guys know I don't use the air, it will ripen pretty quickly. So I just finished making pineapple grape juice for myself for all day yesterday. So I have several bottles in the refrigerator. And I was like, you know what? That's something that would be really good for you guys because that just rejuvenated my body so well from the task of planting all of this wheat and everything else that I had to do that I thought that would be good for you. But I used both of my pineapples, so I had to go get one. And typically, this is what they sell in the store because they want it to look pretty. But it's not really ready to eat. But that's a good way of finding out whether or not you need to really not eat it. So if I pull on these and it was just unable to pull out, that means that it's way too ripe. So the fact that I can extract those pretty easily says it's not the color, it's not as bad looking as I like it to be. Usually when I do mine, it almost looks like it's rotten. And a lot of times I have to grab it from the windowsill and put it in a refrigerator if I'm not going to immediately use it because it's just a split second between the time that it gets to that stage where it's really ripe and the stage where it needs to be discarded. So here's a simple thing. First of all, again, you always have to have the right knives. This is my little knife that I'm using to get into onions and chop and dice things for a quick salad. But when I'm chopping red cabbage, the huge cabbage head, red or green cabbage, maybe some of the heavy beets to just trim them down, or definitely this, my watermelons, this is my go-to knife. It's not an expensive knife. I don't remember where I got these from. I've had it forever. It is an NSF. Tramatina. But anyway, well, I don't know if it's expensive or not. It's just that this is kind of cheesy looking, the edge. But this is a really good knife. I've had it for years, obviously. So what you do is you take your pineapple and you lie it down on the side, and then you just chop off the head. That's really not the color that I want it to be. This is some organic. This is all they had. And it doesn't even smell like a pineapple, but for the exercise. So you flip it on the bottom side, and you do the same thing, just slicing maybe a quarter off. Now the bottom is starting to ripen. See, that's been sitting on something in the store, so it's gotten warmer. So you see the difference in the coloration. You see that little yellow, really yellow versus what looks like butter color. And then you stand it flat. Then you simply slide down the side and continue this process all the way around. Now notice that I'm not cutting it so far in where I cut out the little eyes. The little eyes there, you want to keep those on. That's about as close, as far down as you want to go, because that is where a lot of the nutrients are. A lot of the nutrients for most fruits and vegetables is directly beneath the skin. That's where it kind of hangs out, I guess. Cornelia fellowships with the fruit, the nutrients in the fruit. So that's why you just kind of want to be very careful in skimming it, and then you just go all the way around. This is a pretty large pineapple. $4.99 for a pineapple. Remember, you used to be able to get a pineapple for 99 cents? $2.99 was an expensive pineapple. This thing was $4.99. And here's the other deal. This is an organic pineapple because they didn't have any other pineapples. So you have to think, no, this is in its ripe stage for the most part. Now, when it's very ripe, you can actually smell it. That's when an insect or a bug would have an inkling of what's going on inside. When you have a shell, this, or an avocado versus a pear whose skin is that thin, an apple whose skin is that thin, this is definitely organic. You want to buy organic pears. So get the list of the Dirty Dozen. It kind of gives you an idea of those things that absolutely should always be purchased organic, like those grapes with that thin seed, and because the insects love the sappy stuff from the grapes, you definitely want to do that organic, but you wouldn't really need to buy an organic pineapple. But it was the only one I had. It was $4.99. But I think a lot of the pineapples, even non-organic pineapples, have gone up to about $3.99. So that's it. So that's pretty much what you have. So let's speed this up so you can do that. A lot of people say they buy the sliced pineapple because they don't know how to core a pineapple. Well, the sliced pineapple, imagine me slicing this and going on about my business or whatever, letting it sit here, exposed to all kinds of conditions. You don't know what you're getting when you start getting food that's been sliced, not to mention the person's energy that's slicing it up for you. So then what you do, as I just said, they don't know how to core a pineapple. So basically, this is the core. I don't know how well you can see it because I haven't really cut into it. But if I look at here, you see that circle there? And you see the circle on the bottom. So that's the core of the pineapple that runs down the center of the pineapple where this little higgy-jiggy stems from. That's the only thing that you shouldn't really eat on the pineapple. So we'll cut all around it until basically, and that's another good gauge in terms of how you core your pineapple, is to come around the core. Now you can see it a little clear. It's like that. And then when you're doing the pineapple, go and you chew around it until you get to the actual core. No eating on camera because we know what happens with me and eating on camera for whatever reason. I start choking. Then we're just going to chop the pineapple up into smaller pieces so the blender doesn't have to do as much work. And then we're going to add all of our things together. Now remember I said that when you actually juice, using the juicer, after you take your juice, you want to dilute it. So we're just going to put a little water in here to get us started. This is distilled water. And we're going to throw some pieces of pineapple in. Then we'll take about a quarter amount of that, if not the same amount, just visually, of grapes, and then a few of the orange slices. And that's going to basically be it. Then as you keep going will depend on how much you want. Now this is going to get me a whole blender full, so that's going to be close to a quarter pint of juice. I'm not going to do much because I already have like 5 quarts in the refrigerator from yesterday when I juiced them. But I just wanted you to see how simple raw food is, how inexpensive it is. I just talked about a $4.99 pineapple. Maybe about, this may have been $2.50 of grapes. Just with 2 oranges, maybe a couple of bucks. So you're talking $7 to get 2 gallons of juice, raw juice. That's incredible. I mean, it doesn't get any better than that. So I'm going to have to plug this in. There you have it. to do juicing more often, you'll say, you'll say, that's perfect. Or you'll say, I'm going to add more oranges, a handful more oranges the next time. Or whatever you want to do. Or you may say, that's a bit chunkier than I want it to be. Or I had some little difficulty swallowing that. So you add a little more water, or you blend it a little longer. So it's all going to be dependent on what you want to do. The thing about this is that you've got you some great juice. It takes 10 seconds, and you just keep going. And by the time I juice all of this, you'll have at least 4 or 5 of these. And if you want it to really work on your health, to just drink juice for a day, exponential improvement on whatever is going on. Not to mention your skin, flushing out the system, getting rid of a little extra weight around the thing. I'm going to actually chop this and have it to eat on because, again, I have way too much juice already. I don't want it to go bad. And we're going to do lots of salad at the seminar on Saturday, so I'll be eating that for a few days. So I hope this has been helpful, but remember, increase. So it's good that we've learned how to do this, so I'm going to do a whole lot of this so that I can drink it for a day. Maybe I'll drink it for 3 days. And if I drink it for a day, that's going to be good for me. If I drink it for 2 days, that's going to be better for me. If I drink it for 3 days, there's my increase. So that's what life is all about. The more you have, the more you're able to get. Remember that. The more you have, the more you're able to get. Take your mind and your spirit and your soul and abundantly give to others. Abundantly study the Word of God. Meditate on it day or night. And you're going to get the increase in life. Amen? Amen.